Matthew Henson was an African-American explorer who was born in 1866 and died in 1955 and is best known as the co-explorer of the North Pole. Matthew Henson first lived and was born in Charles County, Maryland, where he was the son of two freeborn black sharecroppers. He lost his mother at a very early age, and when Henson was 4 years old, his family moved to Washington, D.C. so that his father could search for more work opportunities. However, his father soon died a few years after moving, causing Henson and his siblings to be put under the care of other family members. At 11 years old, Henson left his family to find his own passion and way. He soon found work as a cabin boy on the ship Henson. The captain of the boat, named Captain Kyncl, took Henson under his wing and gave him an education as well as taught him the finer points of seamanship. During his work as a cabin boy, Henson traveled to many different countries around the world, which ultimately funded his passion for travel and exploring. In 1884, Captain Kyncl lost his life, and Henson moved back to Washington, D.C., where he worked as a clerk in a hat shop. 3 years later at this shop, Henson met Robin Edwin Peary, who was an explorer and officer in the U.S. Navy Corps of Civil Engineers. After meeting with one another, Robin was impressed by Henson's seafaring credentials and hired him as a valet for an upcoming expedition to Nicaragua. Shortly after, Henson joined Peary again on an expedition in Greenland. While he was over there, Henson embraced Eskimo culture, learned the language, and the natives' Arctic survival skills. The next trip to Greenland came in 1893, this time with the goal of charting the entire ice cap. The 2-year journey ended up almost a tragedy. Peary's team almost starved to death, and they survived by eating all but one of their sled dogs. Despite the rough trip, the team returned to Greenland again in 1896 and 1897 to collect 3 meteorites and sell them to the American Museum of Natural History. Over the next few years, Peary and Henson made several attempts to reach the North Pole, which often resulted in tragedies where 6 Eskimo team members died due to lack of food and supplies. However, in 1908, they made progress as their mission was funded by then-President Theodore Roosevelt, and they were able to sail within 175 miles of the North Pole. However, had to turn around due to melted ice blocking the path. The team's final attempt to reach the North Pole began in 1908. During this, Henson proved himself to be an incredibly valuable team member as he built sledges and trained others on their handling. An expedition member once also noted that Henson, with years of experience equal to that of Peary himself, he was indispensable. The expedition continued for the following year, and although multiple team members left and went back home, Peary and Henson trudged on. Peary knew that the mission's success was dependent on Henson and once stated that he would never make it to the North Pole without him. The trip had originally started with 24 men, 19 sledges, and 133 dogs, but by April 6, 1909, only Peary, Henson, 4 Eskimos, and 40 dogs had reached the North Pole. When they returned, despite Henson having a huge role in the founding of the North Pole, it was only Peary who received any acknowledgement or got any credit due to Henson being African American and looked down upon by society at this time. Henson spent the next 3 decades working as a clerk in New York Federal Customs House, but he never forgot his life as an explorer. He recorded his Arctic memoirs in 1912 in a book called A Negro Explorer in the North Pole. In 1937, where he was now 70 years old, Henson finally received the acknowledgement he deserved, and he was accepted by the highly regarded Explorers Club in New York. In 1944, he and other members of the expedition were awarded a Congressional Medal. He worked with Bradley Robinson to write his biography, Dark Companion, which was published in 1947. Henson died on March 1955, and Robert Reagan approved the transportation of Henson's body to the Arlington National Ceremony, where he was buried alongside Robert Peary and his wife.